Okay, before we begin anything today, with continuing with what we're up to, we're actually gonna go through a very random miscellaneous point about something that we discussed in the past regarding selichos. The question is, what's really the optimal time to daven selichos? So surprisingly enough, even on the first night, it's best to daven before dawn. Always best to daven, it seems like before dawn, that's the most special time to daven selichos. Now, there is a strong custom, as we learned in the past, to say slichos after halachic midnight, after Shabbos, on Motzei Shabbos, when the slichos begins for the Ashkenazim. In the footnote over here in the Piskei Chuvas in our Siman, Tavkov Pei Aleph, in footnote number 19, he quotes from Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Rav Yosef Shalom Eliyashiv, who hold that it is better to say slichos in the morning, even after sunrise, than by halachic midnight, which is an incredible, shocking insight over here. Rav Chaim Kanievsky argues and says that it's better after halachic midnight. So it comes out basically in a nutshell, to summarize, that it is best to say slichos, it seems like, before halachic dawn. That will be the best. If you can't do that, then around halachic midnight, and then if not, then you could already just do it in the morning, basically, or the whole day. So that's basically the recap over there. Now, we rushed towards the end of yesterday's session on these Mishnah Berurahs over here. Let's focus on one interesting point over here on this Mishnah Berurah that we ended with. We were talking about over here the Mishnah Berurah in Zion. We were discussing when can an Ovel daven and when can he not daven. So basically, what it says over here in this Mishnah Berurah is that on days, I mean, we could go through the whole Mishnah Berurah again, but we don't need to. It basically says over here that on days when there is no tachnin that's being said, the Mishnah Berurah clearly said that the Ovel could daven if someone else, he could daven Shachris. This, for example, on Rosh Chodesh, if someone else says Hallel. That is the clear ruling of the Mishnah Berurah. Then the Mishnah Berurah proceeded to quote the Chai Adam, who says that the Vilna Gaon wouldn't allow a chazan, an Avel, to daven Shachris on Rosh Chodesh. However, if no one else was available, he is allowed to daven even Musaf. So it comes out that the Mishnah Berurah himself seems to be saying that, look, the Ovel is allowed to daven even on Rosh Chodesh as long as someone else does Hallel. The Vilna Gaon, it seems like, didn't like that. But the Mishnah Berurah himself seems to agree to that. Now, based on this, we could delve into something which is very, very interesting over here regarding this. The Oz V'Hadar Mishnah Berurah in footnote Chav Zayin says we find there are different Mishnah Berurahs all over the place about this topic, and the Mishnah Berurah himself in other places seems to say otherwise, that the Ovel should not daven on Rosh Chodesh. You could take a look at the Mishnah Berurah in Taf Reish Pei Gimel Aleph. You could take a look also at the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Lamed Beis in the Kuntras Maimer Kedishin. You could look in the Mishnah Berurah in Tafrei Samach in Beis. There's a lot of different Mishnah Berurahs, also Tafrei Ayin Aleph, Mendalid. And the Mishnah Berurah in a lot of those places seems to say that the Avel should not be davening at all. When there is no Tachlan that said, or where there's going to be a Hallel, not the whole Shachris, you shouldn't daven. So basically, at the end of the day, they end with Sarach Yin because this requires more research, which is very rare to see contradictions in the Mishnah Berurah. So this is certainly something to think about. That is basically just 2 points that I wanted to point out from yesterday before we continue. Today now we are going to begin continuing with the Ramah, and that's what we're going to do over here. The Ramah concludes this long sif by saying V'yadaktiku lachzor acher shliach sibor hayoser hagum vayoser godol b'torah b'maisim. You should be very scrupulous, be very careful to go after a chazan who is very proper and who is great when it comes to Torah and good actions. In other words, you want to find a good chazan. This comes up, the truth of the matter, in Siman Nun Gimel. That is the primary location of this in terms of who the chazan should be. But now we're talking about especially you should be careful for this during Aseret Simei Tshuva and Yom Noraim during the Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur period. The Ramah continues and says, "She'ev shor limsoy she'yispal selichos Yom Noraim." You should find the best chazan for selichos and Yom Noraim. V'shiyeh bein shloishim shana gam shiyeh nasui. He should be 30 years old, and also he should be married. Miu kol Yisrael kashedim hem. However, says the Ramah, everyone is kosher, everyone could be a chazan. Rak shia merutzo la kahal. He just has to be wanted by the congregation. Aval im espala b'chazako ein oinim achoyrav amen. But if he davens with strength and he like forces his way up there, then you should not answer amen after him. V'chein, and similarly, sarich sheyoytzi kol adam b'tfilaso v'gam yeh lo yisoyneu machavin shelo lo hitzio. Gam oyavavinim yoytzim b'tfilaso. He needs to fulfill the obligation of everyone when he davens. And if he has an enemy over there, and he has the intention that he's not going to fulfill the obligation of the person who he doesn't like, even the people that he like would not fulfill their obligation. And there are some places where the custom is that the person who davens selichos davens the entire day. First of all, we should point out, as we discussed many years ago when we learned Siman and Gimel, that these halachas over here of a chazan and appointing a chazan, these types of halachas are not as applicable today because our chazanim that we have don't really fulfill the obligation of other people. Because nowadays everyone really says Shmona Esrei themselves, and therefore we could be more lenient about this. But certainly, preferably, we should certainly be concerned about the discussions that we are what we're learning about over here, that which we're learning about. Be adaptable. You should be careful to get a good chazan. Nahavgu la'avor lefnei hateva parnasim umanhigim sheyoidim b'tzad hador. It's correct that the person who's going to be chazan, that they should be leaders who know the pain of the generation. That's who should really get up there. Not anyone should get up there. V'hainu davka kashehem ne'emanim umaginim al hador merutzim la'am. And this is referring to specifically when they are trustworthy, and they protect the generation and people like them. Ubavonoiseinu harabim bedorazem. And nowadays we got a lot of problems, and therefore the chazan should be set. Hayoiser hagun, we should get someone who's going to be very proper. V'kol ha'oizrim l'sayin l'shliach tzibur. Whoever assists and helps the chazan, she'ino hagun, who isn't proper, ki'ilu goizel tov min ha'kahal. It's as if you are stealing good from the congregation. In other words, what this is saying over here is something very serious. If you are assisting a chazan which is improper, who should not be davening, if you're helping up that process and you're enabling and helping that type of person daven, it's as if you're stealing from the congregation. And in the future you're going to get judged. Now, the Oz V'Hadar Mishnah Brew over here quotes the Chai Adam on this line, and Klau Kluf Lam and Siv Dalit, who says, Ra Allah HaMaiso, it's very bad. Shira'isi ma'amidim b'yamim no'yayim shashi and agin yafa. I saw that they were appointing during Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur a chazan who just has a good voice. They're just going after good voices, good tunes. Oy laznayim shekach shoimos. Woe to the ears that hear this. The unfortunate reality is this is ever so prevalent nowadays. Everyone's running after the guy with the good voice. That's the least important factor. Surprise, surprise. Ki hashliach zibor kavanos rak ala nigun shia yafo v'toiv. The chazan with the good voice, the singer who they hire over there, he's just thinking about, oh, my voice, my tunes. You're missing the boat, you're missing the point, the train, you're missing it. Ve'ein kavanos ala tfilos. He's not even having the proper intention for the actual prayers. And the truth of the matter is he's going to be mixing up and disturbing the intention of those who are listening, the thought process. Says the Chayodim around 100 years ago, you should nullify, you should cancel this custom. And this is fitting for anyone who fears heaven, should get up and protest and say, this is not the way it should be. Don't go after the good voices. The Rishonim have a lot of length about this and how disgusting this is. In the Tanya Rabasi and Siman Gimel, they quote, a Shliach Tzibur who doesn't have good actions, you should remove him from his post of being chazan and appoint someone else. Because the chazan is basically the between us and Hashem. And therefore, he needs to be a tzaddik. He needs to be totally righteous. He needs to be straight and needs to be clean in his entire body. Loi mi bayi, it goes without saying on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, and on a public fast and a tiny sibor, whether you're going to have selichos and like, etc. You need someone good. And then he continues over there, if you look that up. The Or Zarua also rants about this in Hilchah Shliach Sibor and Siman Kuf Tezayin, and also the Shiboli Haleket, Chelik Tfilah Siman Yud Ayin Sham, they say, for more details. The Sefer Bechor Shor, written by the Baal Tvu Shor, and Tainus and Dav Tezayin, and Beis, see the recordings and the Tainus playlist to get the entire Mesechta on Tainus for more details. Has a lot of length about the rebuke about these chazanim who all they care about are their tunes, and that's not good, especially if they're improper tunes to begin with. And therefore, you have to be careful about the other necessary qualifications, like we are going to discuss. Look there for more length on this topic. The Mishnah Berurah continues and writes, "V'hasidim li'itein asadin v'yadei ba'atz mashina bokim yod v'yadei lishmor afilu mishkago." Ein lo lahachnes asad mitzvot Hashem. Someone who knows himself, he's not an expert, and he knows that he can't guard this from the accidents. He should not enter in to the service of Hashem, and he should not be the chazan. The guy isn't fitting, proper, and an expert. We don't even wait. We just collect from him immediately. He's going to get punished ASAP. Therefore, you gotta choose a good chazan. He's got to be someone Zokter Amal, like we just learned, but Tairo Masim Tovim. He's got to have Torah and Masim Tovim on his belt. He's got to be like a black belt, Lahavdil of Dollars. He has to have Torah and Masim Tovim, good actions and Torah. It is correct that both the Chazan and the Baal Tokeh, the person who's going to blow the shofar, should have repented. Gam Rosh Yilmadu Hakavanos Ma'atfilos V'Tekiyos. They should also learn the proper intentions for the davening and for the shofar. V'Hum Zohar. They should learn what's the Zohar, the true depths behind what the davening is about, what the shofar is about. V'Nahagu Shemisha Hischil is Palol Etchol Tfilu Pamachasein Liitein Hamitzvah La'acher V'Im Chalohu B'Yad Akah Lahamid Acheru Mikol Mokolim Kishachoizer L'Biusa Mitzvah Chazer Celebration. The custom is that someone who already began being chazan, or he began blowing shofar and he's already done it before, even one time, you keep his post. You don't give that mitzvah to someone else. And if he got sick, okay, if he got sick, so then the congregation already could appoint someone else. Nevertheless, when he gets healthy enough and he's able to resume, he goes back to his post as either being the chazan or blowing shofar. Someone who is involved with a court case, could have been handled in a Beis Din, Jewish court, both parties were Jewish, and he goes to a court which isn't Jewish, he isn't fit to be chazan on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippurim. I always thought it would be an interesting sefer if someone writes all of the halachic differences between Jewish courts and courts which aren't Jewish, the Beis Din and just regular courts, as a side point to see how much it differs halacha from secular law. Anyways, if you see that there's an argument about who's going to daven, just get out of there. Even if the person davening is going to be improper. And this line is a good line for an avel. If you see that there's a quarrel in there, I guarantee you Hashem and the person who you're davening for is the mourner doesn't want you to be chazan. Stay away from the machloikis. That's number one. Everyone makes a big deal. Oh, davening this, that. The ikar is learning more Torah and just being a better person and having good actions. But anyways, that's another discussion in of itself. Comes along the next Mishnah Berurah and says like this. The Ramah said that one of the qualifications for the chazan is he should minimally be 30 years old. Why? Shazra'ui ben Levi la'avoida. Because 30 years old is the golden age when the Levium are fit to serve in the Beis Hamikdash and be involved with the avoda. Utfiluhu keneged avoda. And as we discussed in Pirkei Avos in the beginning of the first parak, see there for more details. Al shloisha devarim omer al Torah al avodah v'gmus chasadim also din and misv'shalom. But one of the pillars that the world stands on is service in the Beis Hamikdash, which nowadays, as we learned through Rabbeinu Yonah over there, our prayers are instead of, our tefillas are instead of. So therefore, that's the idea. Tefillah keneged avoda. V'gam shas libo nishvar v'nincho. Also, at that age, at that time, his heart will already be broken and more like humbled. So therefore, that's why that age is a special age that the Shar Hatzion in Chaf Aleph says. Even though if you look at the Darkei Moshe, he seems to say 25 is the golden age. No, no, no. That's when you could start learning about the davening on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, Kriyas HaTorah, the laning in order that you're going to be an expert. Like you need to learn already the avoda from that age. However, 30 is the actual age that we're talking about. In footnote Chav Beis, they say over here that it is the truth of the matter is that is it a preferable mitzvah, it's a mitzvah of muvchar, that he should be above the age of 30. His heart will be broken. However, the truth of the matter is that those words don't have an explanation. 30, it's shloishim lakoach. When you're 30, that's when you're really strongest. You have the most strength then, and therefore, when a person is strong, his heart won't be broken. Um, so, anyways, you have different ideas over here, maybe above 30. It could be mistakes, different texts. It seems like 30 is going to be the golden age over here. The next Mishnah Berurah continues. The next Mishnah Berurah continues and says, Shein Nasui. One of the qualifications to be chazan on Rosh Hashana or Yom Kippur is actually that you should be married. The question is this talking about Aseret Simei Tshuva also? Yeah, also Aseret Simei Tshuva. One of the qualifications is that you should be married. Dumya de Kohen Gadol shia machinin lo isha acheres. This is similar to the Kohen Gadol. It's very interesting because on Yom Kippur they would actually prepare a backup wife in case his wife died of the Kohen Gadol. Anything could happen. So you got to be married, the Kohen Gadol. So they would already prepare for him a backup wife so that he would be married. Also a wife to save him from sinning. Person's not going to get married, they're not going to be saved from sinning. So therefore the wife helps prevent the sinning from happening, and therefore that's why he has to be married, so he's not involved with the sins. Upashot the imnes damin lo shnayim. Let's say you have two people. All right. Now we're doing compare and contrast. We're gonna play a game. Who should be chazan? You have two people. One person is Shehu ben Torah v'yiras chet ve'ein lo elu pratim. One person, he fears heaven. He learned a lot of Torah HaKadoshah, but he doesn't have the previously mentioned qualifications. V'ashenu ish pashat. The second fella, he's a simple guy. He doesn't know a lot of Torah. He's not the biggest. He doesn't fear heaven so much. But guess what? Hu nasi v'yosim ebein shloshim. He's married. He's above the age of 30. Guess what? Haben Torah koidim. The guy who knows Torah comes first. In other words, don't think that being 30 and married is the most important. The ikar is, the main and the most important thing about a chazan is that he learns Torah. He's a Talmud Chacham, and he fears heaven. You can't just learn Torah to feel heaven. You can't just learn Torah because it's intellectually stimulating and it's educational. That's not the idea what it's about. It has to affect you. Last Mishnah
Right.
of this
I
long
understand
Sif
Yerushalayim,
Aleph
but why does he
says,
need to be?
this
Why
is
does he need to
going
be a
on
guy
the
who learns
Ramah,
Torah?
that says that there's a custom in some places that the person who davens selichos, davens the entire day. What does the entire day mean? Very simple. It means everything but Mariv. Shachar Shemincha. Mariv is already the next day. Shemaschil b'mitzvah. Oimim legoimer. Because someone who begins a mitzvah, we tell him finish what you started, finish the mitzvah. And this is a big important thing in general. A lot of times you see people, they start a project in life. They start a mitzvah in life. They start a limud. They say, oh, I'm going to learn with a chavrusa X amount every single day. I'm going to finish the Sefer. I'm going to, guess what? The first day, they're so excited. They come in there with tremendous energy. Second day, they even show up. Third day, dwindles. Fourth day, fifth day, they even stop showing up. So therefore, when you start something, finish it up. Like we discussed, that we say when we make a siyum, Anu mashkim mashkim, etc. Anu mashkim comes up, right? We say a lot of statements. And one of it is, we say, thank you Hashem, samte chelki miyoshve beis hamedrash vo samte chelki miyoshve koronos. Thank you Hashem, you place my portion in the beis medrash to sit and learn Torah, and not like the yoshve koronos. Simple explanation of the yoshve koronos. The people, they're
Very
sitting
nice
at the
hand.
marketplace at the side, they're schmoozing all day, they're wasting their time, they're just talking all day, all talk, no action, no learning. They just schmoozing all day, like the Esther Rabba says. Person could eat the whole day, sleep the whole day, schmooze the whole day. Guy opens up a sefer and he starts learning. He starts falling asleep. Guy goes to shul to start davening. He starts falling asleep. What's going on over here? But another explanation in Yoshvi Karanas is what? The guy says a keren could mean like a corner. He opens up the sefer, he learns one corner. He says, oh, very interesting. He skips the whole middle. He goes then, oh, very interesting. He's just learning the corners. That's not what to do. Learn the whole thing cover to cover. Anyways, the
Only
idea
one.
is if you start a mitzvah, finish it. Some say if you're going to say selichos, you should have even davened the mariv the night before. Ain't shayich lo, but the Marav following on that day, that he doesn't need to do. The kotzam magen avrom the mitam zeh who koidim la'avu la'molu yurtzai the tefillah tali berotzon hakal. According to this reason, he would even come before a avel, someone who is an avel, a mohel, or someone who has yurtzai. Because when it comes to davening, it depends on the will of the congregation. We're gonna have to come back to this and dissect this. Let's just finish the Mishnah Berurah, then we'll come back to the comments of the Oz V'Hadar V'Eliyarabba Mefakvik Bazeh. There it is. The Eliyarabba doubts this. V'Daiso, and he holds the Yurtzai Yesh Lo Lispalo Imhu Mesana. The person who has Yurtzai should actually daven if he is fasting. Umin Lamanatzeach Ve'elach Yesh Lahaniach Lispalo Afla Avil. From Lamanatzeach and onwards, you should allow the Avil to daven, meaning the not the Yurtzai. V'huva devara b'Prima Godim, and this is quoted by the Prima Godim. Okay, so we're not going to go in the Oz V'Hadar now, just because we only have a few minutes. But let's just open the floor. Any questions, comments to anything that we learned today whatsoever?
What was that thing about Lemonade Seach?
Nothing?
What was that? Whoops,
Anyone?
hold on.
What was it?
Do you hear Sean?
I didn't hear what Sean said.
No, I heard what
What
Sean
was the
said.
thing about
What?
Lemonade Seach?
What? I said something yesterday?
No, what was the thing about Lemonade
Can't hear
Seach? The
anything.
oven. You can't hear me?
I can hear.
Unsure if you hear. Oh, why is the volume broken? Yes, the
Was it?
question, why on earth is the volume broken?
My,
I
you
don't
can
know
hear
why
me,
the
right?
volume's broken.
I'm
Yeah, I
asking
hear you.
about Lemonade. I'm asking about Lemonade
I don't
Seach.
understand why the volume's broken today. Okay. I don't know what happened. All right, we'll resume tomorrow. And we'll take it from there. So remember your questions, write them down. We'll discuss it tomorrow. Sorry about that. Must be when I
Sure.
unplugged the phone. I don't know. Wow, that's a bummer. All right. My bad. All right, we'll resume tomorrow, Mitzvah 9:15.
All right.